This is the Captain Shark Cat. We bought it pre-COVID. It was advertised for $44,000 and we offered the owner, Brian, $38,500 and he accepted straight away, which always makes you a little bit nervous. We first test rode this boat here in Quarantine Bay. This was pre-COVID. I didn't even want to buy a Shark Cat. I just wanted to test one. I'm a tyre kicker from way back, I admit it. And there was one for sale. It was the open deck model. I brought Eric from White Pointer Boats, and Eric has quite a bit of experience running Shark Cats as abalone boats, and also he built the Edencraft Cat as well. I brought a cameraman and I brought a marine mechanic for my tyre kicking exercise. I just wanted to go for a run, and when I went for a ride across Twofold Bay, quartering across the sea, I don't think I've been in a better boat in a quartering sea. The motors, they were revving out to 5,800. We were doing it over 45 knots. And I thought, is there a better boat for $40,000? And I came to the conclusion that there wasn't. So I produced a video especially for Jack. The job I gave our cameraman Nick was make a video that sells this boat to Jack. Now my reputation as project manager for the Captain's project boat is under serious threat. I'm here to redeem it. And Jack, I know you're not here, I know you're up in Cape York, but I found our next project boat. Work with me. It's a Shark Cat. And we got Jack at a weak moment and he submitted, and now we own this Shark Cat. Now Brian had done some work. He paid John Siddell to put new transoms in there. John Siddell, of course, of Seedlecraft fame, so no dramas there. Brian and the family had had a bit of a crack at the floor himself. That was a bit of a mixed bag. The electronics on this boat, they were out of the Battlestar Galactica era. They had to go. The bimini, you wouldn't let your dog sleep on it. The trailer, she was solid. And Brian also offered to throw in the cruiser for a few extra thousand, but we said no to the cruiser. She was a little tight in some areas, but the bones were good. As Eric pointed out, the boat hadn't been molested like a lot of Shark Cats of this era. There were no dive doors, no holes drilled for dive pumps and compressors, and there was no cracking or crazing on the inside where they are prone after a hard work life. I was sold largely on the ride, the motors, and the best deck space you will ever get in a 24-foot boat. The floor space in this thing is amazing. The kill tank at first, I hated that thing, but I've grown to love it and have even filled it up a few times. As a marlin fishing boat, it's brilliant. 360-degree fishing, heaps of deck space for the boys, twin motors, extra fuel tanks. One of the reasons we got the Shark Cat was to go further, harder, longer, faster. One of the reasons we got the Shark Cat was to fish wider for longer. So she's running 245 litre tanks, two 250 litre tanks. The range is pretty epic and it's great for deep dropping. It's an incredibly stable platform in sloppy conditions. It'll get you home safe. It's got the range. So at first we thought we'd bought ourselves a 23-foot Shark Cat, and the reason we thought that was because one, it measures 23 foot from the bow to the side of the stem. The second reason was the registration papers, and the third, she carries the Mark I open deck, which is synonymous with 23-foot Shark Cats. But it took Jim Anderson, owner and builder of Shark Cat at the time, to contact us and set the record straight.
Shark Cat, without doubt, the action boat of the 80s.
Jim Anderson, it's great to finally meet the builder of the Captain Shark Cat. We originally thought this was a 6.8 metre Shark Cat, the vessel that we're actually sitting in. You've rightly pointed out that you built this boat, and it's a 24-foot Shark Cat / 700 series. Tell me about the history of this boat.
Correct. The In 1979, there was a USL code, Uniform Shipping Laws code, coming in. Now, all shark cats, yours included, were built to survey requirement. The USL code stated they had to be over 7 metres in length, with 23 watt. And the 23 hull, they needed tidying up. The mould work needed tidying up. I mean, Bruce was the first to admit it. So was I when I bought the boat. You'd look down the side of a 23-foot shark cat and you would see waves in the hull. We built a 23, turned it upside down, and started on the bottom work. The bottom shape was altered. The sponsons were made wider. All the woofies were taken out of the side of it. It was lengthened, and it had the straight stem and a very pointed stem on it, whereas before the 23s had a very blunt nose and they came up in that duckbill sort of curved stem look. We took yours right out to the length because we had to have 7.01 metres from your boat on the deck joint right the way down to where the floor met the transom at the back, and that's how you measure the boat. Now that boat, the one that you have, planes earlier than the 23, stays on the plank or on the plane longer than the 23 after the transition process, carries more weight and runs harder and faster. So it was a win-win situation. Your boat, I would go anywhere, I would take anywhere. There's not too many boats that'll keep up with that.
So as Jim pointed out, you actually measure the cat to the edge of the step here. And the reason for that is because survey boats back in the day had to be 7 metres long. That sorted, it was down to White Pointer, where we asked Wally to take a look at a few soft spots.
Basically, this is springing up and down. It's only 5 mil thick. So obviously there's no bearers under it in certain places, so it will spring. But what you've got to look for, I suppose, is how much moisture is in it and if there's any rot.
It looks like another half job done. 2/3 of the floor's been replaced. Looks like the front where the seat bases were was just too hard for them. It's come down here to be saved again.
The side on there.
That's typical of a 30-year-old boat.
Well, as you can see, the people that did this did a good job. You know, probably to the best of their abilities. For a backyarder / boat junkie that loves to do up old school Haynes Hunters, you know, they've done everything right. They've fiberglassed the bottom of the floor. They've spent a lot of money on all the timber and materials. But at the end of the day, with their workmanship, they just missed out on a few key points, and that is to seal up all the edges. And you know what? It's wrecked the new floor, and it's wasted a whole lot of money and time and effort. And then the next bloke that's got the boat has to put up with it. So.
What's happening?
To take the floor out of a boat, you need a few key tools. They are the circular saw, a hammer, chisel, pry bar, and a lot of hard work. Because I tell you what, some of these floors are stuck in well.
The rear tanks we replaced, Kane Macquarie to the rescue. He built a couple of 145 litre tanks out of 1.6 stainless steel. We flow coated those, and Wally from White Pointer dropped them back in the boat. One thing we were impressed with when we pulled the floor up was the deck beams in the Shark Cat. They were as good as the day they went in.
Despite the flaw, the good news is the 1985 Harris Shark Cat, mate, it stood the test of time. The deck beams under the floor are still good as the day they got put in. So, you know, they use good material, hardwood.
I have pulled up the floors and I've seen the deck beams you used back in. They are as good as the day you put them in. What timber did you use for these deck beams?
We used Meranti timber, kiln-dried Meranti timber, because it was an open grain timber. Now, what we used to do is you had to look at how much absorption you're going to get with it. It's no good having a piece of timber with fiberglass on it and then being able to pull it off. A lot of timbers are oily, that's why they have to be kiln-dried. A lot of timbers are closed grain, so that the resin won't soak in. The Meranti was an open grain timber, so it would soak in. So once you put your resin and your fiberglass on, we know that it was going to be there for a long time.
So the floor went back in. That was built out of 13mm Thermo-Lite, glass top and bottom. All the screw holes were ground out, filled, glassed over. So with all the floor done, flow coated, it was time for some finishing touches.
This is Shane from Deck Armour. Very exciting because this is one of the jobs that we've been looking for a long time. The guys at the Captain magazine were looking for something that represented what they do. One of the things that was interesting about this build is that we could actually run a theme. So the theme of this boat was the epic story of Moby Dick, and we translated that whole story into the floor. So we used the sperm whale, which was part of the story. We even had the guys in the old boats with their harpoons. Yeah, Moby Dick's pretty peeved at the moment. He's got a couple of harpoons in him and very angry. This concept ties everything together. It ties the business of Moby Dick, this boat, the history of this boat, the visual spacing around the floor, it ties all that in. So it feels right. And I think that's really important when we're doing these boat designs, that we're not doing things because we should. We're designing things that fit the boat, it feels right, and you end up with a result that's something like this. But what I believe really does finish this off is these amazing seats. A lot of detail have gone into them, diamond stitching, and the colours work. It looks like they're symbiotic of the boat and that they should be there. This is a really top quality job, really impressed. Nice work from Matt Robinson and the boys from Marucci Boat Covers.
The electronics, we're running Simrad front to back. We've got an Evo 2 at the back here. We've got an Evo 3 at the front. That's paired up next to an S2009, and I love that thing. This is probably one of my favourite bits of kit we've come across. It's a 9-inch screen. It's obviously in a portrait shape, so you're getting the definition there, and we're reading perfectly on the bottom. I can see the fish here, I just need Mick to catch them. So the Evo 3 and the S2009, they're running through an S5100 module. That just means I can run everything at max power. Transducers, we're running a B175 high wide in the starboard hull and a B175 low on the port side. So we've been skippering the Sharkcat for a few years now, and I can tell you what we do love about her. We love the ride, particularly in a quartering sea, down sea. Head-on's not her favourite position, but side on, quartering, brilliant. We love the load carrying capacity. I got lots of camera gear, I got lots of kids.
Is he right under us now? Like right under us?
No, he'll be up in front. I reckon he'll come up in front of us here.
Whoa! That was a breeze.
Loves a boys fishing adventure, load it up, get Grant on, get the beer. 360-degree game fishing, loves it. So what don't we like? There's a few things. Well, there's no hard top, but who gives a fuck, because I go fishing on the good days. She does corner like a train slowly leaving the tracks, and there's no getting away from that one. The driving position is probably not the ideal position, but that's a compromise between deck space. The fuel bill, oh my God, is disastrous. Those V6s love chewing the juice, particularly cruising home at 40 knots. The cat shutter, so at trolling speed, the water sort of travels down the tunnel and shudders like the boat is about to split in two, but Wayne Henning and Jim Anderson assure me it won't split. It's just one of those cat traits. Another thing I don't like is when I pull up to Fraser Marine out here, old Al stumbles out and says, "Oh, how's the old wetback going?" That's when the tunnel is squeezed, pressurising the air forward out of the tunnel, then in a vortex around the boat and into the cabin. The other downside on the Cat is you're pretty much running two of everything. So 2 motors, 2 fuel tanks, 2 batteries. And if you want redundancy, you're going to have 4 of everything. The servicing costs are a bit of a killer. The props also sit pretty close to the outside of the boat, and it's more prone to catching fishing line. The other thing I love about the boat is it's pretty much original. Other than the kill box, the motors, everything on this boat is pretty much how it was built in the mid-80s. Another thing I really love about the Sharkcat is owning a piece of Australian boat building history, and shout out to Bruce Harris for starting Sharkcat. It's just one of the best Australian boat building stories, and Jim Anderson for continuing the legacy and, you know, putting the boats out there, improving the production quality and refining the product, which is, you know, this boat here. And they're still being worked today. You know, if you go to Malakuta, they're still run as abalone boats today. And this boat holds its own 35, 40 years later. And that is a testament to the men that built this boat.